The night on the frozen colony world was bitter and endless. Snow drifted through the broken streets like ashes falling from the sky. Shadows stretched long across rusted metal walls, and silence pressed on every corner. Only the sound of Daniel's boots broke the quiet as he moved through the abandoned district, his breath fogging in the cold. Daniel had been traveling for days without rest, searching for supplies, shelter, or even a sign of life. Most doors he passed were locked, some sealed with old warnings in alien script. But one faint glow caught his eye, a weak but steady light burning through the snowstorm. It was a cafe, a small and lonely place that looked as though it did not belong in this wasteland. He hesitated at the door, his hand hovering above the handle. The thought of warmth inside was tempting, yet there was also fear. On this colony, nothing came without a price. Still, his tired body and empty stomach made the decision for him, and he stepped inside. The cafe was quiet, almost too quiet. The air was warmer, filled with a soft fragrance he could not place. Tables stood empty, chairs pushed back as if waiting for ghosts to return. Behind the counter stood a woman, not human, but something else, something alien. Her skin shimmered faintly under the dim lights, pale with a strange glow like moonlight reflected on water. Her eyes were deep and luminous, as though holding secrets of another world. Her hands moved gracefully as she cleaned a cup, her expression calm, yet unreadable. When Daniel entered, she lifted her gaze and whispered a greeting that carried more weight than a simple welcome. "Traveler," she said softly, her voice like a breath of wind. "You must be cold." Daniel nodded, unsure what to say. He had met aliens before, but none like her, none who spoke with such quiet certainty. He pulled a chair and sat near the counter, his eyes never leaving her. "I just need something warm to drink," Daniel said, his voice rough from the cold. The woman tilted her head, studying him as though measuring his worth. Then she smiled, faint but real, and began to prepare a drink. Steam rose from the cup as she placed it before him. The warmth reached his hands before his lips even touched it. When he drank, the taste was unlike anything he had ever known. It was rich, calming, and carried a heat that spread deep into his bones. The exhaustion that weighed on him seemed to melt away. For the first time in days, Daniel felt human again, alive again. As he lowered the cup, he noticed the woman watching him. Her eyes were steady, almost piercing, as if she saw something he could not hide. Then she leaned closer, her voice dropping into a whisper that echoed in his mind. "For a simple drink, I can take care of you." Daniel froze, the words lingering in the air. They were not said like a bargain, not like an offer of business. They were spoken like a promise, or perhaps a warning. He felt both comforted and unsettled, torn between trust and suspicion. He glanced around the empty cafe, his instincts sharp. Why was no one else here, in a place that offered warmth and safety? Why did she seem to know more than she should about him, a stranger who had just walked in from the storm? Questions piled in his mind, but his lips stayed closed. The alien woman did not speak again. She simply continued her quiet work behind the counter, her movements elegant. Yet Daniel could not shake the feeling that something unseen was at play. The warmth of the drink had pulled him in, but the mystery of her words held him tighter. Outside, the storm raged louder, pressing against the walls. Daniel knew leaving now was impossible, but part of him wondered if stepping into this cafe had already sealed his fate. He had come only for warmth, only for a drink. Yet he could feel the beginning of something greater, something hidden waiting to unfold. The woman returned to stand before him once more. Her voice low, her eyes filled with a strange kindness. "You are safe here," she said, "as long as you stay." And though the words sounded gentle, Daniel felt the weight of chains hidden beneath them. The drink warmed his body, but her presence stirred his thoughts with unease. Was this kindness, or was this the first step into a trap he could not escape? Daniel sat in silence, staring into the steam rising from his cup. The storm outside howled, but the real storm was only just beginning inside. The cafe lights hummed faintly, casting long shadows across the empty tables. Daniel sat with his cup in hand, but the warmth inside him felt heavier now, as if the drink carried more than simple comfort. The alien woman moved gracefully behind the counter, her eyes never leaving him, her silence louder than words. Finally, she leaned closer and whispered again, her voice barely above the storm outside. "For a simple drink, I can take care of you." Daniel's fingers tightened on the cup, his thoughts racing. He had heard promises before, on battlefields, in trade stations, from smugglers who swore loyalty until gold changed hands. But this was different. Her words carried a weight that pressed against his chest. It was not an offer of service. It was a vow, though he could not understand why it was given to him, a stranger. He studied her closely now. Her silver hair shimmered faintly in the dim glow, and her pale skin held scars half hidden beneath the fabric of her sleeves. Her gaze was steady, but there was something behind it, a quiet sorrow mixed with unshaken resolve. Daniel felt as though she saw deeper into him than he allowed anyone to see. "Why me?" he finally asked, his voice low. The woman tilted her head, as though surprised by the question, then answered softly, "Because you are alone, and this place devours the alone first." Her words made his spine stiffen. He had walked through dangerous worlds before, but never had he felt so clearly that unseen eyes were already upon him. Daniel glanced at the window. The glass was fogged, but shapes moved faintly beyond it, shadows slipping through the storm. Not random wanderers, not survivors in search of warmth. These shadows moved with purpose, circling, waiting. The soldier in him stirred awake, warning him that this was not chance. He set the cup down slowly, his hand drifting toward the knife at his belt. The alien woman noticed the movement, yet her face did not change. Instead, she placed her own hand lightly on the counter, the faintest trace of fear showing in the tremble of her fingers. "They know you are here," she whispered, "but they want me more." Daniel's chest tightened. "Who?" he demanded. Her voice lowered, filled with quiet bitterness. "The ones who trade lives like coin, the ones who think warmth and care are weapons to control." Her scars told the truth of her words. She had been owned once, bound in chains, yet somehow she had broken free. Now this cafe was her shield, her disguise, but it was also a beacon that drew danger closer with every passing night. The storm outside howled louder, and the shadows pressed nearer. Daniel's instincts screamed at him to leave, but another part of him knew that the moment he stepped outside, the hunters would fall upon him. The woman's whisper echoed in his mind. "For a simple drink, I can take care of you." Was it a promise of protection, or a warning that by drinking, he was already bound to her fate? The lights flickered once, twice, and then steadied. Daniel's grip on his knife tightened, his pulse quickening. The woman leaned closer, her glowing eyes meeting his with calm certainty. "If you stay, you may live," she said. "If you leave, you will not survive the night." The words struck deep. He had come here only for warmth, only for rest. Yet now he found himself at the edge of something larger. This was no simple cafe, no simple drink. It was a crossroad, a choice he did not know he was making when he walked through the door. Daniel's breath came slow and steady, his decision weighing heavy in his mind. Outside, footsteps crunched in the snow, closing in. Inside, the alien woman's eyes glowed brighter, her whisper steady as steel. "Strangers do not stay strangers for long," she said. "And tonight, you must choose what you will become." The storm pressed harder against the cafe walls, shaking the old wooden frame. Daniel sat tense, his hand near his knife, while the alien woman stood calm behind the counter, her glowing eyes fixed on the door. He could hear it now, soft footsteps crunching through the snow outside, slow and careful, like predators circling prey. The warmth of the drink inside him felt like fire, but the air around him was cold with danger. The woman whispered, "Do not move suddenly." Her voice was calm, but there was iron beneath it. Daniel's instincts sharpened, every sense awake. He had been hunted before, but this was different. The enemy was invisible, unseen, and that was always worse than open battle. A shadow passed by the window, tall and thin. Daniel caught it in the corner of his eye, but when he turned fully, the glass was empty. He knew they were testing him, circling, measuring. Hunters always waited for weakness, for a mistake that gave them the advantage. "Who are they?" Daniel asked, his voice low. The woman's answer was a whisper almost lost to the storm. "They are the broken ones, mercenaries who sold their souls long ago. They prey on the lost, they sell the living to survive." Her eyes darkened. "And they know I shelter those who would escape them." Daniel felt the truth in her tone, a lifetime of pain carried in each word. He studied her, and for the first time noticed how still she was. Every movement was controlled, precise, like someone who had learned to survive by never wasting energy. Her scars told their story clearly. Chains, captivity, escape. She was more than a cafe keeper. She was a survivor hiding in plain sight. The door rattled, a sudden knock breaking the silence. 3 sharp strikes, then silence. Daniel gripped his knife tighter, every muscle ready. But the woman raised her hand, stopping him, her eyes never leaving the door. "They always knock first," she whispered, "to see who will answer." Her calm unsettled him even more. Daniel leaned forward, whispering back, "And if you don't answer?" Her lips curved into a faint, bitter smile. "Then they break the door." The knock came again, louder this time, followed by laughter muffled by the storm. Daniel's heart pounded, his soldier's mind running through choices: fight, hide, or escape. But escape was impossible, and hiding was useless. He knew then that a fight was coming, whether he wanted it or not. The woman moved slowly, her hands resting on the counter. "You should leave through the back," she said quietly. "They want me, not you." Daniel shook his head, anger flashing in his eyes. "I don't abandon people to wolves," he said, his voice low but steady. Her gaze softened, just for a moment, before hardening again. Outside, the storm howled, and shadows pressed against the windows like ghosts. The handle of the door turned slowly, metal squeaking in the silence. Daniel rose from his chair, knife in hand, his breath steady. The woman whispered one final warning, her voice like steel. "Once this begins, there is no going back." The door creaked open, snow blowing in with the wind. Figures stepped inside, tall, armored in scraps of metal and leather, eyes cold and empty. They looked at Daniel first, then at the alien woman behind the counter. One of them grinned, a cruel smile that showed broken teeth. "We smell warmth in here," he said, his voice rough. "And warmth must be paid for." Daniel stood tall, his knife glinting faintly in the weak light. The mercenaries laughed at the sight, as though they had already won. But Daniel had faced worse odds, and he felt the fire of the drink still burning in him, strange and alive. He looked at the woman, and she met his gaze with a nod, unspoken understanding passing between them. The storm outside was nothing compared to the storm now inside the cafe. And Daniel knew, whatever happened next would change everything. The mercenaries filled the cafe with their presence, the storm behind them pushing cold air into the room. Daniel stood still, knife in hand, his stance steady, while the alien woman remained behind the counter, her glowing eyes fixed on the intruders. There were 4 of them, tall and brutal, their armor mismatched, but their weapons sharp and ready. The leader stepped forward, his voice rough as gravel. "We don't want trouble, human, just what is ours." Daniel narrowed his eyes. "And what would that be?" The man grinned, his teeth yellow. "Her," he said, pointing toward the woman behind the counter. "She ran from us, she belongs to us, and tonight she comes back." The words echoed through the cafe, heavy and cruel. Daniel felt his grip tighten on the knife, anger sparking in his chest. The alien woman did not flinch, but her voice carried a weight that silenced the room. "I belong to no one," she said firmly. "Not then, not now." Her words carried years of pain and defiance, and for the first time Daniel saw her not as fragile, but as unbroken steel. The mercenaries laughed, cruel and mocking, but Daniel saw the flicker of doubt in their eyes. He turned to her quickly, his voice low. "Is this true? Were you with them?" Her gaze met his, calm and steady. "Yes," she said. "They chained me. They used me to serve their greed, but I escaped, and I built this place to protect others who had no voice." Daniel felt the weight of her confession settle over him. She was no ordinary survivor. She was a shield, hiding behind a simple cafe while protecting others from the very monsters now standing in the room. The leader sneered, stepping closer. "You can play hero, alien, but you know the truth. You were ours, and everything you touch will always belong to us." Daniel's rage flared. He stepped between them, his knife raised, his voice cold. "Not tonight." The mercenaries laughed again, but it was forced now, the storm outside masking their unease. The woman whispered, her voice meant only for Daniel. You should not fight for me. They will kill you. Daniel shook his head, never looking away from the enemies. Then let them try. Her eyes softened, a flicker of something like hope shining through her calm mask. It had been years since anyone had stood for her, years since anyone had chosen her side without demand or price. The mercenaries spread out, circling the tables, their boots heavy on the wooden floor. Daniel shifted his stance, his soldier's instincts returning, every muscle ready. But before blades could strike, the woman lifted her hand slowly, and the lights in the cafe flickered once, then steadied. Daniel felt the air change, heavy, charged with something unseen. The leader froze, his eyes narrowing. "What trick is this?" he snarled. The woman's voice rang through the cafe, strong and clear. "You forgot what I am." Her glow brightened, spreading from her eyes through her skin, silver light wrapping her in a soft aura. Daniel's breath caught. This was no ordinary alien. This was power hidden under years of silence. The mercenaries stepped back uneasily, muttering curses under their breath. They had not expected resistance. Not from her, not from the man who now stood beside her. Daniel felt the fire of the drink still burning within him, and in that moment he realized it was more than warmth. It was her gift, a piece of her strength woven into him. The promise she had whispered was real. The leader growled, raising his weapon. "You can shine all you want, but we'll break you again." Daniel raised his knife, ready for the fight, but the woman placed a hand gently on his arm. Her voice was calm, unshaken. "Not yet. Daniel, let them see what they fear first." Her light flared brighter, filling the cafe with a glow that pushed the shadows back. The mercenaries shielded their eyes, stumbling as the aura pressed against them like invisible chains. Daniel stood in awe, the truth settling over him. She was not just a survivor, not just a keeper of a cafe. She was something greater, someone who had endured chains and risen stronger, a hidden protector of the forgotten. The leader cursed and backed toward the door, his bravado breaking under the weight of her light. "This isn't finished," he spat, before retreating into the storm with his men. The door slammed shut, and silence fell again, broken only by the sound of Daniel's heavy breathing. The woman's glow dimmed slowly, fading until only her steady eyes remained. Daniel turned to her, still gripping his knife. "What are you?" he asked quietly. She met his gaze, her voice soft but firm. "I am what they fear, Daniel, and now, by drinking what I gave you, you are part of it too." The storm howled outside as the last echo of the mercenaries' retreat faded. Daniel lowered his knife slowly, but his hand trembled, not from fear, but from the weight of what he had just witnessed. The alien woman stood quietly behind the counter, her glow dimmed now, but her presence still carried power. She had revealed her secret, and in doing so, had bound Daniel to something far greater than he had expected when he first walked into this cafe. Silence stretched between them, broken only by the crackle of weak electricity in the lights. Daniel's mind raced, his soldier's instincts urging him to leave before the mercenaries returned with reinforcements. But another voice inside him spoke louder. If he left her now, she would face them alone, and he would carry that shame forever. His eyes locked on hers. "They'll come back, stronger, with more men," he said firmly. "They won't stop until you're theirs again." The woman's gaze did not waver. "I know," she whispered. "They never stop, but I cannot run anymore. This place is all I have left, and it is all I can give to those who come here seeking shelter." Her words pierced him deeper than a blade. She was not just fighting for herself. She was fighting for the nameless, the forgotten, the weak who had no one else. Daniel understood then that this was more than survival. It was resistance. The choice pressed on him, heavier than the storm. He could leave now, disappear into the night, save his own life, and never look back. Or he could stay, stand beside her, and fight a battle that was not his, but one that felt like it should be. Daniel took a deep breath, his voice steady as stone. "If they come for you, they come for me too. I won't walk away." For the first time since he met her, the woman's expression softened. Her glowing eyes shimmered with something new, not power, not sorrow, but gratitude. "You do not know what you promise," she whispered, "but I will not forget it." She reached for the counter, pulling out a hidden drawer, and from it she revealed a small weapon, old but finely made, a relic of battles long past. She placed it before him, the metal gleaming faintly in the dim light. "This was taken from me when I was chained," she said. "I kept it hidden all these years, waiting for someone who would fight beside me, not for me." Daniel picked up the weapon, its weight familiar in his hands. It was no ordinary sidearm. It was alien technology, sharp and efficient, built for speed and precision. The warmth from the drink inside him seemed to answer the weapon's touch, as if the two were connected. He looked at her, his voice quiet but certain. "Then we fight together." The woman nodded, her silver hair falling across her face as she whispered, "Together." It was more than agreement. It was a bond, sealed not by blood, but by choice. A sudden noise broke the moment. Through the storm came the echo of engines, rough and heavy, growing louder. Daniel's stomach sank. "They're already regrouping," he said sharply. The woman's calm voice carried steel. "They will come with fire, but they do not know we are ready." Daniel moved toward the window, pushing aside the curtain. Through the haze of snow, he saw dark shapes moving, more mercenaries, armed with rifles and torches, their shadows flickering against the storm. They had not fled. They had gone to gather reinforcements, and now they were marching back with full strength. His grip on the weapon tightened, his heart steady, no longer torn. The cafe that once seemed like a fragile place of warmth was now a fortress in his eyes, not because of its walls, but because of the woman who stood inside it. He turned to her, his voice firm. "They'll try to burn this place down. We stop them here, no matter what it takes." Her glowing eyes met his, filled with fire. "Yes," she whispered, "and when dawn comes, they will know we were not afraid." The storm roared louder. The mercenaries drew closer. Daniel stood beside the alien woman, weapon in hand, his choice made. He had come for a simple drink, but now he was bound to a fight for something far greater. A fight for warmth, for care, and for the right to live free in a universe that sought to chain them. The storm outside was no longer just wind and snow. It carried the sound of engines, boots, and steel. Daniel stood by the window, weapon in hand, watching the shadows of mercenaries march closer, their torches cutting through the night like hungry teeth. Beside him, the alien woman moved silently, her glowing eyes sharp, her calm steady. She was no longer only the keeper of a cafe. She was a warrior hidden in plain sight, and tonight, she was ready to fight again. The first strike came fast. A metal canister crashed against the cafe wall, bursting with fire and smoke. Daniel coughed, but did not move back, his instincts already sharpening into battle mode. The woman raised her hand, and a shimmer of silver light rippled across the room, pushing the smoke aside as though the air itself obeyed her. The mercenaries shouted outside, their voices harsh and cruel. "Bring her out! Burn the place down!" one growled. Daniel felt his jaw tighten, his grip firm on the alien weapon. He glanced at her, and she nodded once, silent agreement between them. The door burst open, splintering into pieces as the first wave stormed in. Daniel moved like lightning, his weapon firing with precision, alien energy bursting into the chest of the lead mercenary. The man fell instantly, the glow from the weapon burning through his armor. The others roared in anger, rushing forward with blades and rifles. Daniel fought fiercely, every strike measured, every movement sharpened by survival. But he was not alone. The woman stepped forward, her glow spreading like fire, wrapping her in silver light. She lifted her hand, and the air cracked with unseen force, slamming one mercenary into the wall, his weapon shattering as he fell. Together, they moved as one, Daniel's blade and gun striking with speed, while her strange power bent the storm itself. Torches extinguished, rifles torn from hands, enemies stumbling as if the ground beneath them shifted. Every second revealed her strength, and every second proved his choice to stand with her. But the mercenaries were many, and they kept coming. The leader stepped through the broken doorway, his armor heavier, his rifle massive. His voice thundered through the cafe. "You cannot fight us all. You cannot fight forever." Daniel raised his weapon, his voice steady. "Then I'll fight until I can't breathe." The woman's glow flared brighter, her whisper sharp as steel. "He does not fight alone." Her light burst outward, blinding the room for a moment. The mercenaries stumbled back, shouting curses. Daniel pressed forward, striking fast, his blade cutting, his shots precise, driving them back step by step. The leader roared and charged, his weapon raised. Daniel blocked the strike with the alien sidearm, sparks flying as steel met energy. The force threw him back, but before the leader could finish him, the woman raised both hands. A wave of silver light surged, slamming into the leader and sending him crashing into the far wall. The cafe shook, the storm outside screaming louder as though answering her power. Daniel pushed himself to his feet, chest heaving, weapon steady again. The mercenaries hesitated now, their confidence cracking. They had come expecting prey, but they had found resistance. The woman's voice rang through the room, calm and fierce. This place is not yours, and neither am I. Her glow pulsed, pushing the remaining enemies back toward the door. Daniel stood beside her, knife in one hand, weapon in the other, his voice low but unshaken. You heard her. Leave, or you'll fall here tonight. The mercenaries cursed, retreating into the storm one by one, dragging their fallen with them. The leader glared from the doorway, fury burning in his eyes. This isn't finished, he spat, before vanishing into the snow. The door slammed shut behind him, the cafe falling silent once more. Daniel lowered his weapons, breathing hard, sweat on his brow. The woman's glow dimmed, leaving only the quiet warmth of her presence. She turned to him, her voice softer now. You chose to stay, and because of that, you live. Daniel met her gaze, his chest still heaving. We live, he corrected, his words carrying more than survival. They carried loyalty. In the storm's fading roar, something new had been forged. Not just survival, not just a fight shared in desperation, but a bond, tested in fire and sealed in trust. And both of them knew this was only the beginning. The storm eased with the night, the heavy winds slowly quieting until only soft snow touched the broken streets. Inside the cafe, the air was heavy with smoke and silence, broken tables, shattered glass, and the faint glow of dying lamps. Daniel stood in the center of the room, his chest rising and falling, weapon still in hand though the fight was over. Beside him, the alien woman leaned against the counter, her silver light fading until she appeared once more as the quiet keeper of a forgotten cafe. They had survived, but survival came with a cost. The floor was scarred, the windows cracked, the walls trembling from the battle's weight. Yet the cafe still stood, a fragile fortress holding its ground against the night. Daniel wiped the sweat from his brow, lowering his weapon, his voice steady. They'll return. You know that. The woman nodded, her glowing eyes dim but calm. They always return, but now they will fear what they found here, and they will not forget you stood with me. Her words carried both warning and gratitude. Daniel felt the truth in them. He had crossed a line, and there was no going back. He was no longer just a traveler passing through. He was part of something greater. He turned to her, his voice quiet. You gave me strength with that drink, didn't you? Not just warmth. She did not deny it. Yes, she whispered. It was a piece of me, a bond one could not give lightly, but you proved you would not waste it. Daniel let the words sink into him, and for the first time in years, he felt not only alive but connected. It was more than survival, it was belonging. The storm outside cleared, moonlight spilling through the broken glass. For a moment, the cafe looked less like a ruin and more like a beacon, fragile but unbroken. Daniel sheathed his knife, setting the alien weapon on the counter. Then we rebuild, he said firmly. Not just this cafe, but whatever comes next. The woman's lips curved into the faintest smile, her first true smile since he had met her. Together, she whispered. They began to clean the wreckage in silence, each movement steady, purposeful. Every broken chair, every scattered shard of glass became a reminder of what they had endured. And with each piece they lifted, they laid the foundation of something new, trust, loyalty, and a bond forged in fire. Outside, the world was still cruel, the mercenaries still out there, but inside this small cafe, a new beginning stirred. Daniel paused, looking at her as she worked, her silver hair catching the moonlight. You said strangers do not stay strangers for long, he said softly. Her eyes met his, steady and calm. And now you are no stranger, she replied, her voice warm. The weight of her words settled into him like a vow, and he knew that from this night onward, their paths were tied. The storm had tried to break them, The mercenaries had tried to claim them. But in the end, they had chosen each other, and that choice meant everything. Daniel picked up the last broken chair, setting it upright again. The cafe still stood, and so did they. As the first light of dawn pushed through the clouds, the woman poured another cup, steam curling gently into the air. She placed it before him, her eyes glowing softly. Daniel sat, lifting the drink with steady hands. This time, when he drank, he understood. Warmth was not just comfort, it was survival, it was care, it was hope. And in that fragile cafe, on a forgotten world, a human and an alien began something new. Not just survival, not just resistance, but the start of a story that would echo far beyond the storm.